Welcome to the guitar lesson. I'm your host, Tom, eyesofire.net. Alright, for this lesson we're going to use a metronome, and I've got mine set at, I think, 60. Yes, I've got mine set at 60 beats a minute. We're going to do stutter licks today. Stutter licks are very tricky. It's, after what we've been through already, the fingering, the fretboard stuff, the picking is going to seem pretty simple probably. But the trick here is going to be your brain. It's a brain tease, really. And it's going to help you. You could think of it as a plateau buster, I guess. If you're having a hard time concentrating still on all the things that you have to concentrate, this is going to make it easier to move past those points because you're going to shake up your brain cells with this one. That's for sure. But you can do it. You just have to start slow and concentrate, and things will eventually seem more habitual, like to where you don't have to think about a lot of things as much. And these are going to be based off of an A minor pattern, one that goes back a ways. Remember this one? And I had 4 patterns. Well, this is going to be based off that same lick, or those same 4 licks, but there's going to be a stutter added. Turn my metronome back on, 60 beats a minute. Make sure the volume is up all the way on my metronome, so you should be able to hear it. But here's the licks I showed you already. These are pretty standard, pretty easy to play, just gets used to picking. Remember those? And then the variations. Now those you should have down already. So if you don't, you need to review those. Now for this one, the little stutter part, it's going to sound like this. So we'll take the first pattern, which is this one. So we're doing 3 notes a beat, or 3 notes a click. And how you count that, this is a triplet by the way, 3 notes a click. It's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so there's 3 notes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and that's how you count out triplets. And these are going to be triplets also. But unlike this first lick here, it works out pretty evenly, so it's not much of a mental challenge. Every 2 clicks is a circle, it's a cycle of that pattern. Now on the stutter licks, it's going to sound like this. That wasn't the most even, but because they don't work out evenly into the clicks, you have to play that pattern 3 times until it cycles back to itself based on the clicks in the metronome. And you'll see what I mean when you start playing this. So every time that I go through this pattern with this stutter lick here, that part, that's where the stutter is, it throws everything out of whack, so to speak, at least with the metronome. And whenever you've got an odd number of notes, well, not necessarily because triplets work, but whenever it doesn't cycle into itself, you have to play the pattern 3 times until you match back up with the metronome again. And there's probably a better way to explain that, but the best way is to just look at the tabs. There will be tabs for this, thank goodness. And memorize the tabs and get the timing down and start slow. Even start slower than this if you need to. I'm at 60 beats a minute right now. But here's what the pattern looks like again. I'll play it again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and So I play the pattern 3 times, but that was 1 time through, at least in terms of the clicker. So now I'm going to do it 2 times through in terms of the clicker so you can hear what that sounds like too. So I'll be playing that pattern 6 times. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and So basically, every time you end back on the 1, when you're counting 1 and 2 and anytime, or every time you end back on the 1, then you just cycled, at least in terms of the clicker. I guess that's another way to explain it. But you'll see what I mean when you're looking at the tabs and you're playing this, that you have to go through the pattern 3 times because it's odd. And here's what the other 3 patterns look like. The next one, straightforward, was this one. And with the stutter, it's going to sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and and here's what it sounds like gone twice through in terms of the clicker. So I'll be playing that pattern 6 times. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and and the next pattern, which is this without the stutter. Works out evenly. Now with the stutter, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and Alright, now I'm going to play it 2 cycles through, which will be a total of 6 times going through the pattern. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and my mistake, let me start over. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the first time there when I messed up, I did a stutter on both ends of it, and I just wanted to do it at the beginning. So now the 4th lick, which is this one without the stutter. And here it is with the stutter. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I'm going to do it 2 times through with the clicker, which will be the pattern 6 times to go through the cycle twice in the context of the clicker. So here it goes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so at the end there, I just went down an octave, and then I tapped a natural harmonic, simply by tapping 1 octave higher. We went over that in a past lesson. I'm sure I'll hit it again in the future one, but that's just a little trick I threw in there to make it sound more interesting. Okay, you can also combine these stutter licks. My notebook out here. So we'll combine just the non-stutter lick to the stutter lick to make it sound more interesting. And I'll have these written out in tab for you, so no worries. But here's the first one. Now in this one we're going to play the non-stutter first, followed by the stutter. And because the stutter is added, I've got to go through this whole pattern 3 times to cycle back with the clicker. So here's what it sounds like. Just the pattern 1 time through. My mistake. Let me do it again. So that's the pattern 1 time through. Now I'm going to play it 3 times through so I can cycle back to the clicker and it sounds more correct. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I'm going to reverse that combination lick. I'm going to do the stutter first and then the standard one. So I'm just going to play the pattern one time through first. Let me start that again on the metronome click. Good rule of thumb, you saw it here. It's a good practice to count at least 4 clicks before you come in so that you can mentally lock yourself with the metronome. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that's the pattern one time through, and I'm going to play it 3 times through so it cycles back with the clicker. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a little tap with the harmonic again. So those are stutter licks. Very tricky, but it'll help you blast past some concentration plateaus that you might be having trying to think about everything else, especially when you're doing easier stuff. You might find that you're able to do things more second nature-like. So practice those stutter licks, write them down in your journal, and increase, well first, find where you're comfortable playing these first, even if it's 45 beats a minute, and then increase it about 1 or 2 beats a day. And I bet, in a few weeks, a month, whatever, it won't be too long, and you'll get really good at those licks. And then you'll also find that you're getting good at playing other licks too, while concentrating not as hard, which makes it more fun and opens a doorway for a whole new creativity when you can focus on the music in your mind versus the mechanics of your hands. So that's today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. Gave you a couple free extra minutes there, as I usually do.